Well, thanks to the Bridgins household for that reading. And it was lovely, wasn't it, everybody, to see Lucy and Alex, members of our church fellowship, who have been away travelling for a number of months. So welcome back. When we're through all this and able to greet each other face to face, we look forward to giving you a rousing welcome back and a big hug. But it's great to see you. And thanks, guys, for sharing that reading from the book of Matthew in the Bible with us in such an interactive and engaging way. I hope we're all getting this sense and this account of Jesus riding into Jerusalem on a donkey. And so I'm just going to bring a short thought about this. And as I read the passage and prayed this week, the thought that came to mind was the fact that I was able to think beyond Palm Sunday, down through this week to Good Friday and Jesus' death on the cross. And it struck me as I thought about this crowd on Palm Sunday and then looked at Good Friday and Jesus on the cross, it just didn't turn out like they expected, did it? It didn't turn out like they expected. However, if I look even beyond Good Friday to next Sunday, to Easter Sunday, to our celebration of Jesus rising from the dead, by Friday it didn't turn out like they expected, but the best was yet to come. It didn't turn out like they expected, but the best was yet to come. They greeted Jesus on this Palm Sunday coming into Jerusalem. I used that verse at the beginning of the service, which was the prophecy. See him coming in, riding on a donkey, your king, humble. And that was being fulfilled. These people, these Jewish people, would have known that prophecy about Jesus. And here it was happening. They were people who were expectant. They were expectant of a new king, of a new leader, of someone who would overthrow the authorities that were in place at that time. In him was great expectation and great hope. And then by Friday, it just didn't turn out the way they expected. They had shouted, Hosanna, he saves. By Friday, the one who they thought would save them was nailed to a cross and died. But the best was yet to come, because with the empty tomb and Jesus alive on Sunday, we see that he does indeed save. But it is important to dwell with the fact that on Friday, when he was dead, all these expectations of Palm Sunday had not been met at all. And boy, can we relate at this point in time to expectations that are not being met. So some of you guys watching today are at school, or were at school, you're now being homeschooled. You had expectations of going into school, with being with your mates. Particularly those I've been thinking about and praying for are those that are in year 6. You had lots of end of term trips and parties and celebrations planned. That was what you expected, but that's not what it's going to be like. And I'm sad for you. Same if you were expecting to do GCSEs or A-levels. It's been hard to work out what's going on because it's not as you expected. People at work, things have just changed. It's not as we expected. And then there's the realms like sports. I know some of you are part of football teams. Well, the season has just been curtailed. Your chances to be top goal scorer or whatever, that expectation has been dashed. I know that there were people planning to run half marathons and marathons, and people like Paul and Dave Walters were going to ride the cycle velo of 100 miles. They've all been cancelled. Those expectations have evaporated. You may be a Liverpool fan and you thought things were going particularly well. Well, who knows what's going to happen? And then there are the birthdays that occurred at the end of March. the expectation of parties. And then there's holidays that we were all looking forward to, that we don't know what's going to happen. So this sounds all sad, and it is sad, and I think it's important to acknowledge that when hopes and expectations aren't met, that there is a sadness, there's a loss. And there's a very serious side to this coronavirus as we see the numbers of deaths rising. And so the assurance is that Jesus is in it with us. But that's not to deny the pain and the difficulty of these expectations that are not met. So how do we look and see that there are good things to come? How, if we are followers of Jesus, are we resurrection people? How do we look for life in what seems hard? How do we look for light in what seems like darkness? Well, as a church at St Mary's, we recently had a sermon series, a number of talks on a book in the Bible, which is a letter called Ephesians, because it's written to the people in Ephesus. And in there, the Apostle Paul writes this: "Now to him," which is God, "now to him who can do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine." He can do immeasurably more than we ask or imagine. I think it's easy at the moment to see what we've lost. But the encouragement is to see what else is going on. I see my day-to-day life. But I ask, I wonder what God's doing in the heavenly realms. And also, what's God doing for me and for you at this difficult time? I think this is an invitation to look and to see where God is in the difficulties. The invitation to us is to see where God is in these difficult times. What I'd like to do is share with you something I've seen this week. It is something written in 1942 during World War II. It's written by C.S. Lewis, who was a prominent Christian writer. He wrote this: "Satan says, I will cause you anxiety, fear and panic. I will shut down businesses, schools, places of worship and sports events. I will cause economic turmoil." Jesus says, "I will bring together neighbours, restore the family unit. I will bring dinner back to the kitchen table. I will help people slow down their lives and appreciate what really matters. I will teach my children to rely on me and not the world. I will teach my children to trust me and not their money and material resources." Wow, something written 1942 during the war, and very pertinent and applicable to us today. I've seen various different forms of that, if you like. I read something about someone who'd been enjoying their daily exercise as a walk and talked about seeing spring burst forth and making that contrast that we're having to spend a lot of time inside, and yet the buds, the bulbs, the flowers are bursting out. Some people are spending a lot of time in silence, but the bird song is loud and clear and frequent. This person wrote that although we're in lockdown, it seems like the world, nature, doesn't realise it and is going about being beautiful all the time. And isn't God like that? God's not stopped working. God is never in lockdown. God is at work, and our invitation is to look and see him. One final example of this that I had was a guy I had in my youth group when I did a beach mission in North Wales, and I hadn't kept up with him, but I saw through social media that on Saturday the 21st of March he got married. He got married with 5 people in attendance. He got married live streaming the service. And he wrote something along the lines of, well, our wedding day in terms of that service and the wedding breakfast afterwards was nothing like I expected. And yet there were some amazing things. People sending messages and connecting through social media that he'd not had contact with for ages. And they felt greatly blessed through those things. Just like Palm Sunday moving into Good Friday, many things not turning out at all like we expect. But when we believe in Jesus, when we know the other side of Easter Sunday, we know that the best is yet to come. As resurrection people, let us look for life. As people who follow Jesus, the light of the world, let us look for light in the darkness. Now, as I've been recording this, I was just sent a message from a member of the congregation and an encouragement from their morning reading. So I'm going to close with what's sent. It's from 1 Peter chapter 1, verses 5 and 6. In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a while you have had to suffer grief and all kinds of trials. These have come so that your faith is proved genuine. We face trials for a little time, but the joy is still to come. Joy cometh in the morning. May we look and see, may we trust, and may we be resurrection people looking for the fact that the best is yet to come.